Hello BookTube, this is Weekly Reads, and I've had a pretty good reading week, even if the rest of the world has gone to hell in a handbasket. So, for this week, I've been reading Tsubasa Reservoir Chronicle by Clamp. Clamp is a mangaka collective composed of 4 women who have been around for 35 years now, and they have created a wide array of seminal works of manga, most notably Cardcaptor Sakura, but also Clam School Detectives, X 1999, Chobits, Tsubasa Reservoir Chronicle, Exholic, Cardcaptor Clear, so on and so forth. Tsubasa Reservoir Chronicle is Clamp's big crossover manga. It features variants, other versions of many classic Clamp characters, most notably the protagonists, Siren and Sakura, who are the main characters, or the primary versions are the main characters of Cardcaptor Sakura. In Tsubasa Reservoir Chronicle, Siren is a young archaeologist working in the Kingdom of Clow, and he's in love with Princess Sakura. One day, when Sakura comes to visit the ruins to bring lunch for Siren, she's also in love with him. She is grievously wounded in a magical attack. Sakura's memories are shattered and spread throughout various worlds. To save Sakura's life, Siren is sent to visit the space-time witch Yuko. Joining Siren are 2 other characters, Korogane, a ninja from a version of Japan who is sent to Yuko by the Princess Miko Tomoyo in order for him to learn, I guess that true strength comes from the power of friendship and family rather than his martial prowess. And Faye the Flowerite, a sorcerer who's trying to flee his homeworld. Yuko basically groups them together and tells them that they're going to be traveling to different worlds, and in order to do this, they have to pay a price. Korogane gives up his sword Ginryu. Faye gives up a tattoo that has ties to his magical abilities, and Siren gives up his relationship with Sakura. And they go off across various worlds to find Sakura's feathers. The first half of the series is largely an episodic adventure, although behind the scenes there is a wizard, Fei-Wang Reed, who's manipulating things. And gradually things begin to percolate. Not only Fei-Wang's schemes, but also that things aren't quite right with some of the characters. And then they come to Tokyo. Not the Tokyo where Yuko is located, but a post-apocalyptic Tokyo where shit hits the fan. And from that arc on, it's just very, very, very different series than what it started off as. For the good, there's a lot of high-key action, emotional moments, but also things start to get weird. Very, very weird. um, so I first encountered Tsubasa Reservoir Chronicle almost 10 years ago. I'd been aware of Clamp's work previously. I watched the boulderized American dub of Cardcaptor Sakura in the late 90s or early 2000s. And I'd also had watched the anime version of X. And then I've also read Cardcaptor Sakura, which it's a delightful, but at times weird work. And what there is of X. X is a really interesting series that's never been finished and will never be finished. It's been on hiatus for like 20 years now. So, anyway. So after I'd read Cardcaptor Sakura and X, I came to Tsubasa Reservoir Chronicle, and I read the first 17 volumes before I petered out of reading it. And so, having come back to the series after about 8 or so years, it was quite fun to read not only what I've already read, but also what I hadn't read. And on the whole, I rather like Tsubasa Reservoir Chronicle. I do have a few issues with it, as I'm wont to do. So I really like the story progression. I like most of the arcs. The first half are largely rather delightful, episodic adventures that could go on forever. The later arcs, I also like the more impactful arcs later on. I'm not. Some of the arcs didn't quite do it for me. I'm not particularly fond of Piffle World. It's one where, in order to gain Sakura's feather, they have to participate and win a fantastic race. Now, none of these four have ever raced these machines before, but somehow they all make the preliminaries, and Sakura, who finally had been mostly a support character for most of the journey up to this point, becomes more active and manages to win the race. And while I think it was necessary for her character, it's kind of unearned. In a way. Plus, there's the whole sort of cheating storyline that went along with this that was ultimately unsatisfying. Deeply unsatisfying. And then that plot is largely recycled in a later arc, which was a bit annoying. And I'm not thrilled with how the series ends. I think the ending is quite muddled, by and large. It's satisfying, but a bit of a mess, too. I like the characters, particularly Faye and Korogane. I think they are very well done, and their character progressions are just really, really subtle and really well done. And I think Sakura's characterization's also nicely done. I'm not as fond of Sierra, and he's the most static of the four. Even though he does go through some momentous changes himself, I don't think those changes are really explored all that well, or given the depth that I think it really deserves. And I think the side characters are pretty good. I'm not. I don't. Okay, so moving on to the villain. Fei Wang Reed, he sucks. Not because he's a bad man, but he sucks as a villain. I think the weakest part of the series is that Fei Wang Reed is just a bad villain. Um, it's his motivations just, yeah, it's given no depth, and I think in part of me he manipulates everything, but yeah, I don't think he quite works as a villain, and I think there are a few other villains that I think could have been given a bit more a boost to sort of spice things up. Particularly one villain. I think he could have deserved a whole lot more attention to be paid to him. But, oh well. Moving on to the artwork, I really quite liked it for the most part. I do like Clamp's art style, particularly their backgrounds. I think they are incredibly well done. And also the costume designing. Clamp is famous for their costumes. And basically every arc, all 4 characters get new costumes. And they're all great. I'm not as fond of the character design though. I think Clamp's art style, the characters are a bit too willowy. And sometimes in the action scenes, the foreshortening is a bit exaggerated to almost Luffy levels. So, anyway, but I mean, I really enjoyed reading it. It was an experience that I quite liked. So yeah, I'm not entirely sure if I will do something similar with, say, Full Metal Alchemist or Fairy Tail. I think if I did something that big, particularly Fairy Tail, I mean, Full Metal Alchemist is like 27 volumes, so I could probably do that in a week too, but I think with Fairy Tail, maybe I should, if I do, when I get around to doing a big reread of Fairy Tail, to take my time and not read it all at once. So anyway, so I would have liked, I think, I was kind of tempted to, in kind of going through some of these, the pages and showing you some of the artwork, but that would be way too much trouble. And also, at points, quite spoilerific if you want to read Tsubasa. Which, I mean, the ending aside, I really do think this is a very, very good manga that you should check out. Let's go put it back up. Currently, my manga are on my headboard bookcase. Anyway, so moving on to what I will be reading this coming reading week. I'm planning on doing some Bell redemptions. Now, admittedly, I have had zero luck with Bell redemptions the last few times I've tried them, but I want to have it out with these 2 books, and if I do Bell redemptions with them, then I'm done trying to have a go at these 2. So I'm going to give a Bell redemption shot to Burnt Sugar by Avni Doshi. This was came out in 2020 and was shortlisted for the Booker Prize. It's about a young woman who has a very toxic relationship with her mother, and kind of figuring out that relationship and coming to terms with it. And I'm also going to give a Bell redemption shot to The Namesake by Jhumpa Lahiri. This is about Indian immigrants whose son has perhaps one of the most unfortunate names for a character, and who struggles with being an immigrant, or being the children of an immigrant, the child of an immigrant. Oh, let me rephrase: being the child of immigrants, and sort of balancing being an American while also maintaining his Indian heritage. So hopefully, I will have some successful redemptions. And if I do need to read something else, or if I have the time, I'm also hoping to get to The Master of Go by Yasunari Kawabata. This is a nonfiction novel, I guess. I think there's a specific genre in Japanese that this book kind of is a part of. Although, if you ask Steve Donahue, this would probably be considered autofiction, because the narrator is very much Kawabata. Kawabata did, in the late 30s, report on a very famous Go match, which this revolves around. So, yeah. I mean, it's one of my favorite works by him, and I'm really looking forward to rereading it. And of course, if my reading plans do collapse, as they are sometimes wont to do, then I will find other things to read, although I think I'm going to be taking a break from manga for a bit. Tsubasa, I think, will wipe me out. So anyway, BookTube, that was what I've read, what I'm planning on reading. Yeah, so my plans for next week, I'm going to try to get a few tag videos out next week. There are quite a few that came out this week that I really want to do that I get a chance to. And also try to do some discussion videos. I've wanted to do some discussion videos or reaction videos, and I haven't had the time. So I'll try to get some of those done next week. Hopefully I won't be as swamped for time as I was this week, which was quite trying. So on Tuesday, my mom got a new wheelchair, and I wasn't entirely sure I would be able to make a video, but the wheelchair got relatively late. It was about 6:30 before the wheelchair finally got here. So I was going to do a tag on Tuesday, but there was a bit of a crisis during my normal filming time, so I didn't put it off. And then on Wednesday, I and my mom went to go watch 3 of the 4 Children of the Apocalypse. Famine had an appointment, and my brother and sister-in-law took her, so we had Pestilence, War, and Death to watch. And for the most part, they were quite delightful. They didn't really start to give us a problem or start to act up until they wanted lunch. But it was fun. And then today, my mom had an appointment, even though we got back in time for me to do my 3 cookbook book haul, which I've already dipped into. I've been dipping into Cocina by Rick Martinez since I got it on Tuesday, and I'm really enjoying what I'm seeing from that one. It doesn't have as much in the way of sweets, which is rather surprising given Rick Martinez's show on Food 52 is Sweet Heat, where he does focus quite a bit on adding sweetness to savory dishes. And I think he's also done a few desserts for it too. And I've also dipped into the Sweet Alchemy and Caprial's desserts after I finished Tsubasa. One thing about the later volumes of Tsubasa is they do read incredibly fast compared to earlier volumes. So I dipped into them, and I quite like what I'm reading. I'm looking forward to trying some of the various recipes. Although I think Sweet Alchemy, some of those recipes might be a little bit more advanced than I'm quite ready for, but we shall see. So yeah, that was that. I don't think I should be doing anything this coming week except for going over to my brother's for Mother's Day, and which would also double as my sister-in-law's birthday, and I'm not entirely sure what they're planning on doing for family because her birthday's coming up next week. Anyway, BookTube, I'm being summoned, so until next week, thank you, have a great weekend, and stay safe.